Okay. Morning, everybody. Sorry, a touch late. I hope that's not inconvenienced you too much. So today we're going to do a quick theme on volunteers, and as ever, we'll keep that reasonably good time, and obviously plenty of room for any other questions after that. Let me just quickly tell you a couple of broadcasting figures because I know you like them so much. On Friday night, France TV broke their record 3 times in a row, just on Friday, for the highest competition audience of Paris 2024. It now sits at 13.15 million, achieved by Léon Marchand, of course. His medal ceremony, a new high since the Games in Athens. One other there, NBC reports the Paris Olympics are averaging 32.4 million viewers across NBC Universal platforms for the first 8 days, up 74% compared to Tokyo. And a quick few digital figures. Olympic social media engagements have gone beyond 9 billion, which is 50% higher than the entire Games in Tokyo. Games, we are very confident that the Games will be watched by more than half the world's, or followed by more than half the world's population, and we're certainly on track for that, if not more, I think, at this stage. I'm told there are 35 medals in play today. Okay, so let me hand over to Anne, who can do the volunteers. So Anne, over to you.
I start with just a few words on the program of the day.
Yeah.
Bonjour à tous, je vais parler en français. Donc bienvenue pour ce 12e jour de compétition aux Jeux de Paris 2024. Hier, on a vécu un super Saturday, un super samedi à la hauteur des attentes, avec encore de grands moments de sport. Laissez-moi vous en signaler 3. D'abord le circuit de la butte Montmartre qui nous a offert un spectacle extraordinaire pour la course en ligne de cyclisme, avec un monde fou sur les routes. Alors je ne sais pas si c'est un record olympique, mais il y avait 500 000 personnes qui se sont rassemblées le long du parcours hier. Hier, pour l'épreuve reine de l'athlétisme, le 100 mètres, qui a couronné Juliane Alfred, avec un premier titre pour Sainte-Lucie. Donc ça fait partie aussi de ces moments d'histoire auxquels les Jeux peuvent contribuer. Et puis enfin, l'équipe de judo par équipe. Les épreuves se sont achevées à l'Arena Champ de Mars avec cette sublime finale qui a opposé la France au Japon jusqu'au bout du suspense. Donc ça me permet juste de dire un mot, puisque les épreuves de judo sont terminées, un mot sur les transitions de sites. Vous savez que pour les Jeux de Paris 2024, on a décidé d'optimiser la carte des sites, de réduire le nombre de sites de compétition pour permettre l'organisation de plusieurs sports dans les mêmes sites. Et donc plusieurs sites de compétition vont entamer leur transition. L'Arena Champ de Mars va bientôt accueillir les épreuves de lutte après celles de judo. Pour les épreuves au Grand Palais, c'est bientôt le taekwondo qui prendra place après l'escrime. Le stade Pierre-Mauroy à Lille va bientôt accueillir les phases de handball. Ça me permet de vous rappeler qu'il y a des places encore à acheter à partir de 24 € pour les quarts de finale en handball. Et ce soir, après la finale de tennis, c'est la boxe qui sera organisée à Roland-Garros. Donc des sites qui vont se transformer et accueillir de nouveaux sports. Aujourd'hui, un programme chargé encore avec 27 sports dans 23 sites de compétition. On va passer du coup au sujet du jour. Donc à côté de moi aujourd'hui, vous avez donc Alexandre Morédon-Condé qui est directeur en charge du programme des volontaires. Merci d'être avec nous ce matin. On a également 2 volontaires qu'on remercie vivement de leur présence, qui ont quitté leur poste pour être avec nous ce matin. Donc Rosa, qui est assistante de la délégation espagnole, et puis Fouzi, qui est le chef d'équipe à l'accueil des spectateurs à Paris, la Défense Arena, un super site de compétition où l'ambiance est formidable. Donc je donne tout de suite la parole à Alexandre pour vous dire quelques mots sur le programme des volontaires mis en place par Paris 2024.
Merci. Merci beaucoup Anne. Bonjour à tous. C'est vrai qu'on est à une semaine après le début des compétitions. On voit des performances sportives qui sont incroyables et des images uniques grâce à la beauté des sites sur lesquels elles se déroulent. Moi, effectivement, aujourd'hui, je suis là pour vous parler des personnes qui contribuent largement à l'atmosphère des Jeux qu'on peut ressentir depuis une semaine. Et d'ailleurs, je voudrais en profiter tout de suite pour pour remercier les volontaires qui sont dans la salle. Donc merci à vous de faire vivre à tout le monde les Jeux de cette manière. Dans le cadre des Jeux olympiques et paralympiques, on a 45 000 volontaires qui sont mobilisés, et ces 45 000 volontaires, ils sont vraiment à l'image de ce qu'on voulait faire passer à travers le projet Paris 2024. C'est une équipe qui est engagée, qui est riche dans sa diversité, qui est paritaire. Vous pouvez le constater quand vous allez sur les sites de compétition ou les autres sites sur lesquels vous allez retrouver des volontaires. Vous allez vous rendre compte qu'on a autant d'hommes que de femmes, mais la diversité ne s'arrête pas là. D'abord, on a travaillé beaucoup avec le mouvement sportif français. Il faut savoir que le bénévolat s'inscrit dans l'ADN du sport en France, puisque on a 16 millions de pratiquants qui pratiquent du sport au quotidien grâce à l'ensemble des bénévoles qui font vivre le mouvement sportif français. On a voulu aussi s'assurer d'avoir l'ensemble du territoire français qui était représenté. On a les 101 départements qui sont représentés. On a des volontaires qui viennent de plus de 150 pays. On a 20% de volontaires qui sont hors de France. Et on a aussi un chiffre dont on est très fier, c'est qu'on a 5%, un peu plus de 5% des volontaires qui sont en situation de handicap, et c'était aussi un élément qui était très très important pour nous, d'attirer un maximum de volontaires en situation de handicap. On en est très fiers. Et puis quand on parle de diversité, c'est important aussi de se dire que on a toutes les catégories d'âge qui sont représentées. On a un tiers des volontaires qui ont moins de 25 ans, 10% qui en ont plus de 60, et tous les autres entre ces deux catégories d'âge. Donc vraiment entre le plus jeune qui a 16 ans et la personne la plus âgée qui a 94 ans, on retrouve vraiment l'ensemble de la population. Ce qu'il faut avoir aussi en tête, c'est que les volontaires sont très engagés, puisque sur les volontaires qui vont participer aux Jeux paralympiques, la moitié d'entre eux auront déjà participé aux Jeux olympiques. Maintenant, quand on crée une équipe qui est diversifiée, il faut la préparer au mieux pour qu'elle puisse faire ce que vous pouvez voir depuis des jours maintenant. Et pour ça, on a mis beaucoup d'énergie sur la formation, la préparation des volontaires, qu'on puisse suivre de nombreux modules de formation, que ce soit en ligne, à travers plus de 800 modules de formation qui ont été créés. On a 94 sessions de formation qui ont été organisées sur les différents sites de compétition, rien que pour les Jeux olympiques, avec un taux de participation qui était très très fort. Et on sent cet engouement des volontaires autour du programme depuis le début du processus de candidature, parce que pour rappel, on avait eu plus de 300 000 candidatures au programme des volontaires à travers un processus de recrutement qui avait commencé en 2023 avec, je le disais tout à l'heure, l'implication du mouvement sportif, de l'ensemble des villes qui allaient accueillir les Jeux, et à travers une campagne grand public qui a permis d'attirer beaucoup de candidats de France et d'international. Il faut savoir que la moitié des candidats au programme des volontaires venaient de l'international. Donc voilà, donc on est très fiers d'en être là. Les missions que les volontaires réalisent dans le cadre des Jeux, elles sont de trois ordres. La première, c'est vraiment celle que vous voyez partout, qui sont les volontaires qui participent à l'expérience des différents publics des Jeux, que ce soit les spectateurs, les journalistes, les délégations. Et vraiment, ils sont là pour les accueillir, les orienter. Ils représentent environ 60% des missions. On a environ 35% des missions qui sont vraiment focalisées sur la contribution à la performance sportive. Donc là, on pense vraiment notamment aux volontaires qui sont sur les aires de compétition. On a les compétitions d'athlétisme qui commencent, par exemple ceux qui posent les haies ou qui installent les starting blocks au début des compétitions. Et puis on a également l'ensemble des volontaires qui représentent environ 5% des volontaires qui nous aident à faciliter l'organisation, notamment qui vous ont probablement distribué vos cartes d'accréditation ou qui remettent par exemple les uniformes aux arbitres et officiels. Voilà, donc aujourd'hui on a vraiment des volontaires qui sont super engagés, qui vivent des belles histoires, et je pense que la meilleure chose pour en parler, c'est de leur laisser la parole. Donc je vais d'abord peut-être, Rosa, te laisser nous partager un peu ton expérience.
Bon, pour moi, être volontaire des Jeux Olympiques, c'était un rêve que j'avais depuis Barcelone 92. Et bon, j'aime beaucoup la France et je me sens très contente d'être bénévole ici. Et mon expérience a été magnifique. Le staff qu'on a au village olympique, c'est vraiment génial. L'équipe de tous les staffs, de tous les volontaires, au centre de volontaires, c'est génial. Et aussi très accueillant, très compréhensif, beaucoup de patience pour tout le monde. Tout le temps, ils nous aident à avoir des solutions. Et les jours de la convention des volontaires, j'ai gardé dans ma tête les mots qu'a dit Tony Stanguet, qu'on devait être solucionadores, on dit en espagnol, chercher tout le temps une solution, et c'est ça que j'ai gardé dans ma tête. Et toujours avec un sourire, avec amabilité, et bon, ça a été vraiment génial d'être NOC assistante du National Comité. Et je suis pour l'Espagne, j'assiste la délégation de l'Espagne, et ça a été magnifique de pouvoir rencontrer des gens comme Carlos Alcaraz, comme Rafa Nadal, et c'est vraiment génial, les filles de tennis, Christy, Sarah. À chaque fois qu'on a un succès, on est très contente, on est fiers d'être bénévole.
Merci beaucoup, Rosa. Fouzi, tu veux nous parler de ton expérience à Paris La Défense Arena?
Avec plaisir. Bonjour à toutes, bonjour à tous. Je suis extrêmement ravi d'être là. Très reconnaissant également d'être là parce que je vis une expérience qui est somme toute assez extraordinaire. Alors peut-être juste la genèse de pourquoi je suis là aujourd'hui. Je me suis inscrit au programme volontaire en 2023 par l'intermédiaire de ma société, et beaucoup de personnes m'ont regardé un peu avec les gros yeux en me disant mais pourquoi tu vas te lancer dans cette aventure? Je regrette absolument pas, étant donné que j'ai eu la chance d'être affecté au site Paris La Défense à Nantes, à la natation, et je m'occupe en plus du service des spectateurs. Donc chaque matin, le challenge c'est d'accueillir 17 000 spectateurs, de les faire rentrer dans le site. C'est un site qui est assez atypique parce que c'est un stade de rugby et également une salle de concert. L'objectif, c'est dès que les portes ouvrent, faire en sorte que tous les spectateurs puissent assister à la première compétition du jour. Et mon travail se divise en l'accueil des spectateurs, en placement des gradins, assistance à personnes à mobilité réduite, point info parce qu'il y a énormément d'objets perdus. Et puis après, on a environ une centaine de spectateurs à rôder tout autour des gradins afin de s'assurer que le public est content, que l'ambiance est au rendez-vous, et elle l'est grâce aux différentes médailles françaises. Et enfin que tout le monde puisse avoir une expérience qui est inoubliable. Et c'est également le cas de l'ensemble des volontaires dont j'ai la chance de faire partie.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. C'est aussi l'occasion du coup de profiter de cette conférence pour remercier les volontaires qui nous accompagnent tous les jours aujourd'hui pour cette conférence de presse. Merci à tous. So we're going to open the floor to your question. First, on the theme of the day, please.
Bonjour Alain, merci, Frangeux. Ma question porte sur les volontaires russes. Je sais qu'il y en a certains qui avaient été acceptés puis finalement refusés. Qu'en est-il aujourd'hui? Est-ce qu'ils sont là ou pas là? Merci.
Bonjour. Comme on l'avait partagé dans le cadre de la candidature, enfin le processus de candidature, le programme des volontaires était vraiment ouvert à tous les volontaires du monde entier. Je le disais, on avait plus de 190 pays qui ont été candidats au programme des volontaires. Après, dans le cadre du processus de recrutement, comme on a pu le mentionner dans le passé, on travaille comme pour tous les accrédités des Jeux avec les services de l'État qui procèdent à une enquête administrative et qui sont décisionnaires sur notre capacité à proposer une accréditation à un volontaire ou non. Donc c'est finalement les services de l'État et le SNEAS qui ont le dernier mot sur les personnes qui rejoignent le programme des volontaires.
Est-ce qu'il y en a?
On en a peu, mais on en a.
Ok, merci.
Other question? Yes. So.
Bonjour, je voudrais savoir si vous aviez des précisions sur le nombre de spectateurs hier. Est-ce que vous savez où ils étaient réunis pour le cyclisme? C'était majoritairement en dehors de Paris, à Paris. Merci.
Alors c'était pas sur le thème mais donc j'ai pas de précision. C'était le long de la route. C'est un chiffre qui est officiellement donné par la préfecture de police. Peut-être maybe on the theme of the day. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions sur le thème du jour pour les volontaires? Okay. It seems to be very clear. Merci à tous.
Thank you.
Oh yes, sorry. Sorry. What?
Thank you. Wakako Yuki from the Yomiuri Shimbun. To the leader, the diversity, yes, I went to many venues and met many different, look like nationalities as well as frontiers with impairments. How does those diversity as well as you have to work in a team brought experience for enlightening people amongst frontier as well as how people involved in the games. Any experience from the actual frontiers would be very welcome. Also, one more, the knowledge base. Of course, volunteer people would have learning curve, but when you approach to a new venue asking for entrance, things so forth, often you are directed to somewhere else and then directed to somebody else, and then the answer would never come. So could you tell us a little bit of what is the education, the accumulation of experience there? Thank you.
Pardon. En termes de formation et d'accompagnement des volontaires pour les préparer au mieux à leur mission, on a eu plusieurs grandes étapes. On a d'abord eu une convention des volontaires qui a réuni l'ensemble des volontaires qui le pouvaient à Paris La Défense Arena à Nanterre le 23 mars dernier. Et les personnes qui n'ont pas pu venir, l'autre partie des volontaires a pu suivre en direct la convention des volontaires, ce qui nous a permis déjà de les plonger au cœur des Jeux, de leur présenter un peu l'ADN de Paris 2024. Ensuite, ils ont suivi une formation en ligne générale sur les grandes thématiques autour des Jeux, et ils ont reçu en même temps un guide du volontaire qui leur donnait un certain nombre d'informations complémentaires. Suite à ça, ils ont reçu un module de formation qui était spécifique à leur mission. Par exemple, une personne qui accueille des spectateurs dans un stade a reçu un module de formation en ligne qui leur a permis de plonger au cœur de leur mission. Ils ont ensuite eu un webinaire qui était dédié à leur site sur lequel ils allaient évoluer. Donc là, c'est l'équipe du site qui a organisé ce webinaire pour leur présenter le fonctionnement du site, qu'ils puissent découvrir leur équipe, etc. Et puis, pour terminer, ils ont assisté à un module ils ont assisté à une formation, sur le site de compétition. Comme je le disais tout à l'heure, on a organisé 94 sessions de formation sur les différents sites de de compétition et de non-compétition uniquement dans le cadre des Jeux Olympiques. Voilà. Ensuite, ils ont des briefings qui leur permettent d'avoir un maximum d'informations. Et j'ai oublié de mentionner qu'ils ont reçu également un second guide. Le premier guide était un guide d'information générale. Le second est spécifique à leur site avec un certain nombre d'éléments sur les points d'accès au site notamment. Est-ce que je réponds? Tu veux rebondir?
Si je rebondis juste sur l'expérience en tant que chef d'équipe à la défense, sur la partie diversité, inclusion et le nombre de personnes à coordonner, il est vrai que moi j'ai eu la chance d'avoir au sein de mes équipes des personnes à la fois en mobilité réduite, mais également de tout âge, c'est-à-dire des étudiants jusqu'à des retraités. Paris 2024 a porté une attention toute particulière sur le fait d'avoir les capacités managériales adéquates en début de processus de recrutement, étant donné qu'on m'a posé les questions sur ce que je faisais dans la vie, est-ce que j'avais déjà géré des équipes, est-ce que je parle anglais, et donc c'est plus facile. Moi aujourd'hui j'ai la chance d'être l'un des associés du cabinet Deloitte, j'ai 22 nationalités dans mes équipes, et donc du coup lorsqu'on se retrouve en tant que volontaire dans une optique où tous les volontaires sont de très bonne volonté, on a la chance de pouvoir vivre une expérience assez extraordinaire où tout le monde tire vers le même but, c'est-à-dire faire en sorte que les spectateurs obtiennent une expérience inoubliable.
Merci. Other questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Merci.
very much. You are released if you'd like to sit. You're very welcome to stay, but I think if you want to leave, if you want to sit here, that's also welcome. But thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much to
Thank you very much.
volunteers in general. Okay,
Merci beaucoup.
let's move on to other questions now. Happy to take other questions. Yeah, starting with the gentleman there.
Hi, Jean Paget from Reuters. A question for Anne. We got your statement on the cancellation of the training swim for the triathlon. Can you please share the numbers with us, the latest numbers you have, and also what is your level of confidence that the event will take place? Thank you.
So yeah, we took the decision to cancel the swim familiarization for the mixed triathlon. We've shared the information last night in order to avoid late communication to the athlete. It follows the rain that occurred in the last days. We're expecting improvement in the next hours. I don't have the last figures, but we are expecting improvements regarding the weather forecast. And as we've seen, sun, heat have a very positive impact. So we're hopeful that we can organize the competition tomorrow, and we will take the decision as planned tomorrow morning regarding the last samples.
Yeah. Another question? It's a bit of a slow Sunday so far. Yes.
Hi, it's a question for Mark. It's Mike Keegan here from the Daily Mail. There was a story, Mark, that came out last night that basically said that the IBA had sent a letter to the IOC in June of last year. And in the letter, it gave detail on the tests that have now been reported quite widely, and the fact that one of the boxers had shown up an XY chromosome. I just wondered what the IOC's response was to that, and whether that letter is legitimate, and whether the IOC actually have been shown the detail from those tests.
Well, first off, it won't surprise you to know that I'm going to repeat the line that those tests are not legitimate tests. So there was indeed a letter. Yeah, I can confirm that. But the tests themselves, the process of the tests, the ad hoc nature of the tests are not legitimate. And you'll also expect me to tell you that I'm not going to discuss the individual intimate details of athletes in public, which I think is pretty disgraceful for those who've leaked that material. frankly, to be put in that position must be awful, on top of all of the social media harassment that these athletes have had. As I say, we did receive a letter. As I've been through in chapter and verse yesterday and the day of President yesterday, me the day before and the day before that, even the way that material was shared is against legal, ethical, and all other measures. And you know, you only have to look at Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, Sports Rights Alliance, who also will tell you that these are severe attacks on the rights of these women involved. So I'm not going to comment. A letter was sent, the testing, the method of the testing, the idea of the testing, which happened kind of overnight. None of it is legitimate and therefore doesn't deserve any response, particularly not in detail.
Sorry, very wary of confidentiality,
Sure.
but can you share what is behind you saying that this test does not meet, you know, the criteria?
There's no reason for the test. The test was, as far as we can see, taken arbitrarily. Decision which I've seen reported related also to the competition where one of the boxers beat a Russian boxer. Now, I don't know if there's any truth in I know that the boxer did meet and beat a Russian in that competition. But the very fact that the decision to do the testing was taken on the spot there, under what purpose, under what the test was for, I don't know. As I say, as far we managed to do away with sex testing in the last century, so not quite sure what the foundation for the testing was. We don't really know kind of very much more about it than that. But yes, we did receive a letter, but we won't deal with the contents of that letter. Yes, lady at the back there.
Are you confident that the rules, the gender eligibility rules that are in place for this boxing competition would withstand, if they were taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, that they would stand up to that test by a rival athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't say. I would think that as I say, those eligibility rules have been in place for 2016, 2020, and now they continue to be in place. These two boxers, to repeat again, born as girls, registered as female passports, have fought at a senior level for 6 years with no issues. So I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know how CAS works, but I would think there's quite a lot of precedence that would be the case. Yeah, gentleman here.
Christoph Becker from Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung in Frankfurt. On that letter, you're saying you received it in June 2023. I believe on June 7th, recognition was withdrawn from IBA. At that point, did you have the letter then, or did it
I don't know about the time.
after?
To be honest, I don't know about the exact timing. I can look
Okay.
into that.
And then a question to Anne on the Seine, which is supposed to feature the marathon swimming later in the week. At what point would the IOC decide on whether to hold that race? Would that be a decision on the day as well, or would it be a decision that has to be taken earlier, as you know, if you want to get to the optional venue at the rowing? Would you decide on that a day prior or two? Thanks.
It really depends on the context, and we know we are doing a daily test on the quality of the River Seine, so it really depends on the last result we have. We took the decision yesterday evening regarding the last result we had, but the plan is that the decision is taken on the morning.
Yeah, Reuters down there.
Question for Mark. After the first day of competitions in the boxing and the reactions we saw there, we've seen much more positive reactions coming from the athletes themselves regarding this matter. How do you see this shift in the atmosphere, especially in the boxing community, and also from the Hungarians who decided not to go and take it up with other bodies? Thank you.
I mean, I think as ever, it's, in my view, it's when kind of social media meets reality. And I think a lot of people actually, when they started to read the facts behind the case and read the actual journalism around the case, when people discovered the truth around the case, then it became much more nuanced. Of course, there are very many different views, but you start to see that actually it isn't, unfortunately, we love in social media, don't we, that everything is black and white, and there's an answer for everything that can be done immediately overnight. It's not the case. These issues are much more nuanced than that, but I think, and it's more difficult to explain very important nuances about human rights, about data protection, about the right to privacy. Those are very difficult things to write about in 140 characters or whatever the character limit is now. I think they've done away with it some time ago. But I mean, I think when you start to get a proper informed debate, you actually start to see people understanding the issue more. They can still have their views and they're entitled to their views, but I think that's the reason why it's become a much more balanced debate and much less a kind of a shouting match that you tend to get these days on social media. Yeah, gentleman here, and we'll come back across.
Jay Busby, Yahoo Sports. You had mentioned, obviously, this is a very nuanced debate. Will there be a move at some point to move away or to broaden the definition of what is a male and a female beyond just using the passport as kind of the final determination, because that is sort of a straightforward issue, a straightforward document? Is there a move to at some point after these games, obviously, to broaden that definition beyond simply using the passport as the final definition?
Well, I mean, this is an ongoing debate. I mean, this is not just in boxing. A lot of the federations use the same criteria, and it's a very difficult one. As already mentioned, nobody wants to go back to the days of sex testing. I imagine that there will be discussion about this. There is continuing discussion about this, and yeah, I can imagine that discussion will continue, but I'm not a member of an IF, but I imagine each IF needs to have a look at their own rules and make sure they're happy with them. They were clearly happy with them for these games. And if they, consider that they should discuss them, look at them afterwards, then fine, all well and good. But I wouldn't give them any guidance myself, to be honest. Yeah, gentleman there.
Thank you. I'm Jun Kaneko from Mainichi Newspaper of Japan. My question is about COVID-19. We have seen some cases that some athletes tested positive for COVID-19 so far. So if you have any data, like how many athletes or coaches tested positive for COVID-19, could you tell us? And also, what kind of measures have you taken to prevent spread of the cases? Thank you.
I take the question. So just to say that we are carefully monitoring the health situation in close contact with the national health authorities, not only COVID, any health situation. So we don't have specific data on COVID, but at the national level we have feedback from the authorities. So if you have question on the spread of COVID in France, you should contact them. And regarding the advice we share to the athletes, obviously we regularly remind anyone, the athletes, the delegation, to follow the good practice, to wear masks, to use hand sanitizers, etc., etc.
Yeah, gentleman here. Sorry, you've been waiting a while.
No problem. No problem, man. Jerry Lawton from the Daily Star. I was just wondering if you had any comment on the story overnight regarding the Australian triathlon coach, Brett Sutton, convicted of sex abuse as a coach, apparently banned by his body in Australia, and yet appearing here under, I believe, Chinese accreditation, giving interviews to the world, shall we say. I was just wondering what the IOC's situation was regarding him.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that this person is no longer here at the Games, that they have left the Games. In the first instance, I think it's an issue for the Chinese Olympic Committee, and then obviously also the Federation would need to get involved. Going forward, I can tell you that we will obviously look into this issue. There are many safeguarding issues, safeguarding facilities here and people here involved in safeguarding. But obviously the vetting and the registration and so on, accreditation of people, is part of a 4-year Olympic process, which depends on the work of the National Olympic Committees and the IFs. We can only build on that during the Games. So whilst we have safeguarding measures in place, quite strict safeguarding measures in place, unfortunately things do occur from time to time, and obviously we'll look into this. But I think your first port of call would be to the National Olympic Committee who is employing this person.
Just on that, it relates also to the Steven van der Velde case that we've had. He's still here, obviously. Could you just explain to the layman why the IOC doesn't seem to be in charge of its own competition and you defer everything to the national? I mean, just explain that for a layman,
Sure.
you know, why that happens.
Okay, so I mean, a National Olympic Committee is like a super team. So if you have a team of football, for a football tournament, it's the football team that chooses the players. So in the case of the Dutch team, it would be the Dutch team, the Dutch National Olympic Committee, that would pick the members of their team. Is that, yeah, third one, yeah.
It's all related to the same thing. But on that, I get that. But surely this is your Games. So just because the Dutch national team have picked an individual,
Yeah,
it then goes to you, does it?
So we discuss. I mean, I've touched on this 3 or 4 times, but I'm happy to go over it again. Clearly, this was an issue that was discussed with the National Olympic Committee. They assured us that many safeguarding measures are in place, that rehabilitation is in place, that the team themselves are content with the situation. I understand that the athlete is not and has not stayed in the village. And then there's the broader, more philosophical point, I think, that I'm not sure when this crime took place. I think it's more than 10 years ago. That in the end, I think no crime lasts for. No, there is some rehabilitation possible if people accept the guidance and the counselling and so on, and there's safeguarding in place, which we understood is the case. So first and foremost, it's the National Olympic Committee that chooses. Obviously, we have to also be at least content that the situation, as is with this particular athlete, is acceptable. And it seems to be the case for us that is. That's okay. Yep, gentleman here.
Hi there, Adam Blauwright from AFP. It's a question for Mark. Just to come back again on the IBA mandated tests that we've been talking about. I just want to clarify something about you've called them arbitrary and sort of cobbled together in the past. Just to be clear about it, do you reject the findings of that because you think these boxers were unfairly targeted as individuals, or is it a general rejection of those results because you don't believe in sex testing, as you said that you...
It's, I mean, all of the above. I mean, there is...
So they were individually targeted then?
Well,
is that what
we believe so. I mean, there were 2 athletes who were tested during the middle of a World Championship and carted off and tested.
And they were the only 2 that were tested?
I believe so. I mean, the fact is the process is, as far as we know, those are the only 2. There were suspicions against them, and I need hardly say if we start acting on suspicions against every athlete of whatever, then we go down a very bad route. But there's a whole range of reasons why we won't deal with this. Partly confidentiality, partly medical issues, partly that there was no basis for the test in the first place, and partly data sharing of this is also highly against the rules, international rules. And as I say, if you look at the comments of Human Rights Watch and so on, this is an attack on the rights of those women athletes. So there's a whole range of reasons why we won't deal with them. I think probably first amongst all those is the confidentiality and the right that those women have not to have their lives published across the world without any basis for them to come back or to deal with the issues. Yep, at the back there.
Can I just clarify? Are you saying that there's no place even for testosterone testing to protect the integrity and fairness of?
No, I'm just saying that in this case there wasn't a test in place and there isn't a test in place. It was an arbitrary test put in place. That eligibility test was not part of the 2016 rules, the 2020 rules, or the rules here. So there is no rule. Each federation has to determine their own rules. They know their best, their sports and their disciplines. We leave them to them. They have the eligibility rules, which we linked to when I was first asked about this question 4 or 5 days ago. You can read those online. You can see those eligibility rules. It's up to each federation to come to terms with those.
But in a situation where there's clearly that particular association is not in charge of this competition, so isn't there a place for the IOC to have its own?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we would say is on these women have been competing for 6 years at a senior level. They've been competing all their lives actually as boxers, all their young and adult lives as boxers without issue. So I think what we're trying to get at is how are they targeted for this to come about, and how did it first come about at that World Championships in 2023? And is it fair and right that 2 individuals should be targeted in this way, and that we should take decisions in an arbitrary manner based on arbitrary decisions that have come before by a federation that I will remind you has been completely discredited. And I would urge you, if you haven't looked already, it's quite a view, to look at the views published in video by the president of the IBA online. Actually quite shocking, quite undermining of any credibility that he may have had. And if you really believe, looking at those videos and looking at the comments of that president, that we should take anything that they say or anything that they send us with any grain of truth, then I think not you personally, but I think one would be sadly mistaken, not meant to be an attack on you, but I think I would really urge you all to look at the comments of the IBA, and particularly of the president online. They're quite shocking. Yes.
Thanks. You said the other day, Mark, you were happy, or the IOC would be happy to broaden the discussion once the games have finished, if somebody comes up with a scientific, clear scientific approach. We've had this discussion on the issue before in a lot of courts as well. In Caster Semenya's case, the litigation isn't finished. The European Court of Human Rights is still arguing this case, I suppose. There's no final decision yet. How much does the IOC have to take into consideration discussing going forward? How much does the IOC have to take into consideration whatever the European Court of Human Rights will one day decide on the matter regarding Caster Semenya?
Well, that is a specific case about a specific individual, about a specific sport. I mean, obviously we will read and study any findings, and I think the federations will each, in those cases, read and study the findings and see if there's anything appropriate for them. But I think the case does show, as the President said yesterday and I said the day before and the day before that this, and have already said today, that this isn't a case, this isn't a subject where there is a simple black and white answer. We don't have, much as we would all love it, and what the President said yesterday, to repeat, is that could someone come up with a scientific consensus, then we would be happy to work on that and to work with that consensus. Unfortunately, as you've seen over the past few days, there isn't a consensus. There very clearly isn't a consensus, and this is why this is such an impossible area. It's a minefield to work in, and we continue to try to deliver safe and fair and inclusive sport. All those 3 things can be difficult to come together at times, but we continue to work on those and bring sport and try to keep all of our view on the sport rather than what goes behind it. But it's a tough challenge, and of course we'll take the findings of that court, the federations particularly, I imagine, into account. Yeah, Mike.
Just one follow-up on the actual test itself, Mark. You question the legitimacy of it because of how it came about, and clearly these two were targeted. Do you question also question the legitimacy of the actual test results themselves?
I think the whole process is flawed, and therefore it's not up to me as a spokesperson, not a medical expert, but the whole process, as I understand it, is flawed from the very beginning, from the conception of the test to how the tests were shared with us, how the tests have become public, is so flawed that it's impossible to engage with it. It doesn't mean that there can't be a process in the future, that we can't discuss this, but this specific test, and also with the credibility of the IBA as it is, it doesn't give any credibility to those tests or the method in which those tests were carried out. What? Yeah, we're going to have one more question. Yeah, one more question at the back, as it's a Sunday.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, no, it's 12 o'clock. There we go.
Ed Hula with Hula Sport Communications. Question for Anne. I unfortunately missed the press conference yesterday morning because I was being treated at the clinic at the Hyatt for a case of food poisoning, suffered while eating, right after eating a sandwich at the Grand Palais ahead of fencing. At the hospital where I was treated, the doctor said that they've had a number of food contamination cases involving Paris 2024 facilities. Can you confirm that a number of people who've gotten sick, and whether there's any kind of inspection to make sure that food prepared and served to everybody is safe?
Yes, let me first, I wish you're fine and you will be okay. And I'm sorry to hear that you had that problem yesterday. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not aware of other cases, so I cannot confirm what the doctor said to you.
Is it possible to get a listing or a number?
Yeah, we can check.
Because they take our
the medical
credentials.
team if there are other cases that have been reported.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. We will be back again tomorrow when we will have representatives of the Athletes Commission IOC and I think Paris 24 Athletes Commission. Martin will be here. So we'll talk about athletes' experience and all things athletes. Thank you very much again. See you tomorrow.
Have you found the phone? Fortunately. Not in the pocket. No, it's really. I know. You found the phone. Oh, yesterday.